Good evening, everyone, and welcome to season 2 of the sessions. This evening, I'm joined by Philip Sykes, the founder and well-esteemed individual and face behind the British School of Excellence. As you know, we are talking all things mentorship. The sessions is really about facilitating and advocating for mentorship as a construct, mentorship as an idea, but also mentorship really as a way of life and how we can improve one another. And so, Philip Sykes, welcome. Very glad to have you.
Joy, really great pleasure and honor to be a part of this first series, well, first program in the second series. So well done in putting this together, all you and your team.
No, thank you very much. I was making a comment earlier in backstage with Murray and Lauren to say, I'm so sorry that I underdressed for the occasion. And I underestimated the esteemed speaker that we're going to be hosting tonight. And so apologies that this is not a BBC interview. I don't have a fancy library behind me, but
no problem at all, Teddy. No, it's the content that counts at the end of the day.
Exactly. So, Philip, just to kick off, I always like to ask this question really to all our guests, and that is, what is the best memory you have from Michael House?
There are many memories.
Time at Michael House. I know you have to think a little bit far.
I think many memories, but for me, I think what always really stood out was, looking forward to the Hilton Michael House rugby matches. Those were, fantastic occasions, and just seeing people come up, support the schools, whether it be at Hilton or whether it be at Michael House. There was such an amazing ambiance and energy whenever there was the Hilton Michael House rugby match. And I think, as you got older towards your A block, it became even more fun because you obviously had the opportunity to mingle with, the various schools that you might have had socials with and that sort of thing, and moving around from car to car and everyone, offering you various snacks and drinks and that sort of thing. So for me, it was a very fun memory. There were many. I think, again, a fun memory is the friendships that I've built up. And I'm still very blessed to say that I have such incredible friends from my school days, whether it be below me or a few years, a year or so ahead of me, and obviously contemporaries of mine from the year of 1986.
You know, 1986 was actually a special year. Not only did you complete your time at Michael House, but it was also the year that I was born.
Gee, so that's a couple of years ago. Yeah, actually, I was very fortunate.
That's a few years ago.
Yeah, 86. I was fortunate to attend my 30th school reunion not so long ago, which was fantastic. It really was. Yeah. So you were born then. Wow. Okay. Looking good, Teddy.
Yeah. And Philip, just tell us a bit about yourself, perhaps your background, pre-Michael House. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I'm the eldest of four. I have two brothers who preceded me, came to Michael House as well. We were all in the same house. Born in Johannesburg originally, but moved quite quickly after that to Natal. So a lot of my upbringing was based in Natal. I was fortunate enough to go to a little prep school called Highbury. Middle of my standard 5-year, my dad was transferred to Johannesburg, and I went to Prydwen for the last 18 months of my junior school, which was fantastic because it gave me the opportunity to really get to know people from a completely different part of South Africa. And then on to Michael House at the end of my standard 6th year. And joining Michael House, it was obviously a big shock to the system. It was the first time I'd boarded. But quite quickly on into my first year at Michael House, I developed some great friendships. Obviously had friends from both Highbury or Natal days, as well as the Johannesburg schools that we obviously would have had inter-sports activities with. So it was fantastic. And my brother Rupert, who's 2 years below me, then came along to Michael House in his standard 6th year. Funny enough, I wanted to share a funny story with you, is that there was no place. My father was transferred back to Natal. and there was no place for Rupert to join Pasco. But there was a place that had come up in Founders. And so Rupert got a position in Founders halfway through Standard 6. And the younger brother, PJ, managed to get a space at Clifton Durban. So anyway, there was a day we got back from a holiday, and one of the chaps in Pasco hadn't pitched up back at school. It was almost like he MIA, he went missing in action. And after about a few days, we realized that this chap, who was actually a contemporary of mine, wasn't coming back to Michael House. And so I took it upon myself to march over to Founders. I think I'd checked in with Andrew Cook, but I marched over to Founders. I said, "Roo, pack your bags. You're moving into Pasco." And from that day on, he was ensconced into Pasco. I don't know if I even got permission, but it seemed to pass through the system.
No, that's amazing. I think Pasco was meant to be. I believe Rob herself was also in Pasco, one of our biggest ambassadors, but I'm not sure if you guys ever overlapped. He may have been in Pasco way before you. He was
ahead of me. Rob was definitely a few years ahead of me. I'm turning, I think, 54 this year. Okay. I think Rob's 55, 56, or maybe even a little bit older than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, my younger brother went to Highbury.
Okay, good school.
So I guess we do have quite a lot in common.
Absolutely, a lovely little school. Yes,
very good school.
It's moved on in leaps and bounds since I was there, but it definitely was a very good little junior school. And at that stage was a gentleman by the name of Macmillan, who was our headmaster. Very good headmaster. And hopefully there'll be quite a few Michael Husians who went from Highbury onto Michael House who can reminisce on those particular points. Yeah.
And then Philip, what has been your journey like since high school? So between the time that you left Michael House in '86 up until today, just tell us a bit about that.
To tell you, Teddy, unfortunately, my mum remembers me recalling, my mum recalls me saying, "Mum, school's irrelevant. I'm going to handle myself after high school." So she still brings that up, and we still have a chuckle about that. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I left school. At school, I was always pretty social, organizing socials. A gentleman by the name of Peter van der Post and I and another friend of ours, we used to do all the discos and do the DJing and that sort of thing, always organizing parties. And always, I used to cut hair at school. My entrepreneurial days started. I created a little business at Michael House called Psycho Styles, and I think I must have cut every young boy's hair at the school. I had a little book. One of the toys, in those days, we had toys with a red curtain. I used to haul that around someone. I bought some professional hairdressing scissors along with my mate Greg Redden, and we used to cut hair. We used to make 2 rand a haircut. Because there's no disrespect to the housemaster's wives, but as you know, if you arrived back at Michael House with your hair on your ears, you were sent off to the barbershop. And so the entrepreneurial thing spirit, then I think I even ended up off the record piercing the odd chap's ear. You go to the sanitarium and pick up a needle and pierce the ear for $1 or whatever it was. But anyway, moving on from there, I left school at the end of 1986, as I mentioned, and my friend from school, he and I decided to do a stint traveling Europe. Greg then came back to Natal to study law, and I continued on my journey and landed up in the UK, where we've got a lot of family members, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, and that sort of thing. And I got my first job at the Hard Rock Cafe at Hyde Park Corner in London, cleaning tables, serving water to the guests, because I was a busboy. Busboys didn't take orders. We couldn't serve the food. We just cleared. We took the things to the dish room, and I often ended up running being a dish pig as well, as it was fondly termed, with my mate Jimmy from Nigeria, and he and I would clean dishes and haul bins up at 2 a.m. in the morning up these fire escape stairs, which were, health and safety today would have a cadenza and a serious wobble. But that's what we did. It was fantastic fun, 1987. And eventually, I ended up working on the door at the Hard Rock Cafe, meeting and greeting people. I've got a fond memory of a couple of ex-Michael House boys' parents visiting London and popping in to say hello and having a meal and that sort of thing, which was fantastic. It really was. Off the back of 1987, I decided that I wasn't going to return to South Africa immediately. I had a small little taste of snow skiing at that stage, on my first little bit around Europe with Greg. And I decided to go off to kids' school and go door knocking, looking for any form of job which would allow me accommodation, some pocket money, or make some money, and so I could get up and learn to ski properly. And that's exactly what I did. I became a chambermaid, as one would call it, cleaning rooms out by 10 o'clock, up on the slopes, throwing myself down the mountain behind anyone who looked like they could ski. And that's really how I learned to ski, really officially. Off the back of that, I got a little part-time job in the evenings in kids' school because I needed to continue generating a little bit of extra revenue. And then I returned to South Africa in mid 88. And as we all know, coming from South Africa, our academic years only start obviously at the beginning of each year. So my mum said to me, what are you going to do? And I thought, well, I'm going to find the best job I can possibly find in the hospitality sector as a waiter. And I was so fortunate in the sense that I joined an amazing restaurant called the Colony Restaurant. Unfortunately, it's no longer there as we speak today. It ought to be, but it's not. And the Colony was one of South Africa's top restaurants. It was run and owned by Brian and Val Beat at the time, and their son Sean. He and I, funny enough, had met in London on that time I was over here, and we'd sort of met in passing. We chatted a few times, but it happened to be Sean's parents who owned the restaurant. And so I went for the interview, got the job in mid 88. I'll never forget it. And I joined as a waiter, and my grounding and training at the Colony was exceptional. Val never suffered fools. The attention to detail, it was so spot on, and hence why it became one of the top restaurants in the country. And I then went on to hotel school in 89, and I continued to be a waiter at the Colony Restaurant. 89, 90 at the ML Sultan in Durban. Fortunately, I was given the two top postings when it came to my practical experience. I was posted to the Mount Nelson Hotel for my food and beverage training in those first 6 months, which was fascinating, working in kitchens under Guy Struble and working functions, working room service and that sort of thing. And then my final 6 months was at the Johannesburg Sun and Towers, which unfortunately no longer exists as far as I'm aware. And I worked under an incredible woman by the name of Mary McGinn. That was front office. So that was making beds, room service, rooms division, working at reception, all of that under this guidance of Mary, who is a phenomenal hotelier. From there, I decided to go back to the United Kingdom, having qualified or got my diploma, my National High Diploma from the ML Sultan. And I was fortunate enough to get a job with a very small boutique hotel under the brand called Hyatt International. And it was a little hotel just behind Harvey Nichols in Knightsbridge. And I ran the little food and beverage department there. It was a very small boutique hotel, and was not a hotel that really ever relied on its F&B department to produce much profit or any profit at all. But I was very fortunate. I put a lot of energy into the F&B section of it, mainly running the brasserie, looking after the room service division. And I received a letter out of the blue one day from Madeline Boom, who happened to be the general manager, saying it's a feat really achieved with small hotels, but the brasserie has made a healthy profit. So huge congratulations. Anyway, cut a long story short, to my mum's horror, I resigned from there and I said, I'm going to go do another ski season 5 years after my last one. And she said, always called me Philly boy, you could have climbed the ladder at Hyatt. And mum's always right, we know that. 100%. And she is right, absolutely. I was already, while I was at the Lowndes Hotel, I was put on the management program, and they obviously had some plans for me, but my plans were very different. So I headed off back to kids' school, where I found a job, again, cleaning rooms, running a small bar, with the pure vision and focus to learn to ski at a very high level, which fortunately, with the vision, with the focus and the passion, I managed to achieve that. And then again, off the back of that season, we're now coming into 93. I then returned to South Africa. A friend of mine, funny enough, the same connection, Sean Beat from the Colony Restaurant, now in Cape Town in Hermanus, had asked me if I would join him in business in a small restaurant in Hermanus, which was, in those days, the tumbleweeds used to roll down the streets of Hermanus, as you can imagine. Now it's a completely different place, Hermanus. Joined the restaurant, and we moved things forward on the restaurant front, and things took off there. And then things sort of just changed slightly. I joined a very good friend of mine, setting up a bar in Hermanus, but then I had this burning desire and passion to open up my own restaurant in Cape Town. And along with an ex-Kearsney chap, He and I, in 1993, mid 93, 93, we launched a restaurant in Cape Town called Pages in Time. And time was a play on words, Thyme, so the herb. And it was in a beautiful 1901 Victorian home on the Wynberg Plumstead Road. The area was a little off. It wasn't quite Constantia, but it was a great building. It was absolutely beautiful. Anyway, we launched this restaurant. I had a vision about how a restaurant would work in there. And the two of us launched this restaurant. And within the first year, it became one of the top renowned restaurants in Cape Town. And that, I don't put that down to because it had the best food or it was an overall experience. It was that coaching and training I'd taken from my hotel school days, from the Colony restaurant, and I'd implemented what I'd learned into this restaurant. And it was that attention to detail. It was very much making sure that when clients walked through that door, they felt so at home and so well looked after. And the attention to detail was exceptional. And I think that's what took us to the level of being one of the top restaurants. Come 97, we sold the restaurant and I decided to move back to the UK, this time permanently. And I wanted to leave hospitality behind me, really, at the end of the day. And just out of the pure chance, I had a friend who had a friend in a recruitment business, and they said, I can get you a job in banking in the City of London. I was like, phew. So my first job was looking at microfiche. It was like watching paint dry on a wall. But I got 2 weeks experience at the Royal Bank of Scotland. And my next job was then at Foreign and Colonial in middle office. Again, a fish out of water. I'll never forget shaking the hand of this young accountant called Stephen. Pulled him toward me and I said, look, I'm a fish out of water, but if you guide me and steer me, I won't let you down. And he was fantastic. He mentored me, he guided me, and I was looking at trades for the non-profit organizations, and sort of, I suppose it was a compliance role. Anyway, again, that was about a year at Foreign and Colonial. I then disappeared. This time I bought an old Range Rover, clapped up Range Rover. I think one of my brothers joined me, an old Michael House friend of mine, Graham Riversmore, joined me, and we headed off to Switzerland, to Champéry and the Porte du Soleil. Again, escaping to another ski season. And this time I was taken on by the Swiss Ski School as a ski instructor, which I just threw myself into and loved every moment of it. So I did about a season and a half in the Porte du Soleil, but enough was enough. I had my 30th birthday over there in the summer. I decided then to come back to London, got involved in recruitment for a period of time, but that burning desire to do my own thing again was just biting and it was nipping me at the heels. And I then saw an opportunity. Rupert, being my middle brother at that stage, had gone through a whole scenario of plumbing, working on construction sites here in the UK. And around this period of time, around 1999, 2001, or maybe slightly later, there was a massive shortage in the United Kingdom of construction workers. And we were discussing this, and I realized that there was an opportunity to take adult learners, coach them, guide them, and put them through a proper plumbing program, which was City and Guilds accredited as a foundation certificate. And then they could go off with their portfolio and join a plumbing firm to become, onto the NVQs, which is the National Vocational Qualification here in the United Kingdom. And I saw this opportunity. We created the first residential course for over a 6-week period for adult learners. And we really focused on people coming out the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And then we sort of started getting traction from people all over the country who just wanted to give up their current roles, their current jobs, from doctors to people running restaurants, you name it. There was an amazing cross-section of people who joined this organization, which was called Step 2 Training. That sort of took off from 2002 right till to 2008. I then sold the business and moved. I was living out in the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire, moved back to London, joined my brothers in business for a short while. And then out of the blue, an old friend of mine that I sort of had built a rapport up with, got to know him through Pages in Time restaurant. He phoned me up and he said, Philly, what are you up to these days? And I explained to him I was working with Rue and PJ there in the property development game. He said, come and have a coffee with me in London. So I went into London, off Piccadilly. For those of you out there listening who know London, know Piccadilly, there's a beautiful, beautiful old church just up on Piccadilly, and behind there's a Nero, Cafe Nero. We went in and had a coffee there. And he said to me, I'm running a butler school. I looked at him like, whoa, this chap used to sell stationery and He did various other things. He went off and reinvented himself as an MCSE, Microsoft Systems Certified Engineer. And now in the time I hadn't seen him, he had actually gone off and retrained as a butler. He had been the head butler at the Ritz Hotel, and now he is running his own butler school. He said, Pages in time, your background, please come and see what we're doing at the butler school with the view to potentially getting involved as a coach and a trainer. I thought, what an opportunity. So I went in for a couple of weeks, totally complimentary, observing, adding value where I could, to then start doing a little bit of coaching and training for his students. And things started to develop quite nicely. And then there was an opportunity. He said, why don't we just do something along the etiquette lines? And I said, well, that's something that's really close to my heart, the power of etiquette and manners. That's how I truly believe, Michael House's grounding, my parents, instilling good etiquette and manners as children, and Michael House obviously being a school that topped that up and complemented that. That for me was very much a strong calling. And my wife said to me, Philip, you don't need to go into business with anyone else. Go into set this up on your own. So that's exactly what I did. In 2013 or 2014, I registered the British School of Etiquette originally, and we launched the business. And the first 6 months just took off like a rocket. Boom. And then it just fell off a cliff. Doosh. It's like, head in my hands, what am I going to do? And I've got an incredibly strong, amazing wife, woman who, as we all know, behind every successful man, there's a young lady or a woman giving us a good boot up the rear end and encouraging and supporting. And I have to share with everyone out there that she was supporting the family as well, the mortgage, everything. Really pushing me and encouraging me to not give up. And I wasn't going to give up, but at the end of that sort of 6 to 8 months of real the first at the end of that final 6 months, that first year, I was really had my head in my hands. I was feeling very alone, very sort of depressed, very sort of, frustrated. My friends are in the city mindset, getting ahead, and here I am twiddling around. What the heck am I doing with my life? Anyway, we went away at that stage, and I said to Kerry, a little 7-year-old, at that stage we had a little 7 or 8, 9-month-old son. And I said, she said, please don't give up. This is your calling. And I said, I don't want to give up, but there's 2 things I want to do when I get back to the UK. I want to go and do some very, very dynamic CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And the second thing I want to do is take on some phenomenal coaching, real dynamic coaching. And that's what she said, go for it. So we got back to the UK. I found a great cognitive behavioral therapist. At the same time, I found a phenomenal coaching organization, which cost a huge amount of money. But Kerry said to me, I've got some savings, it's yours. And I'll let everyone know before I get ahead of myself, that's been paid back a long time ago. But that's exactly what I did. And one of my coaches shortly into the coaching session said to me, Philip, what are you doing in the business? And I was wearing every hat. Apart from me creating my own website and doing my social media, which I'm not a fair with, I was doing everything else in the business. And he said to me, you need to hire somebody. I was nearly physically ill. I said, Coach Joe, you have no idea. There's no money. I'm working out of my overdraft at the moment. He says, you have to, when you take on coaching, take on board what your coaches share with you and absorb it and implement. So, okay, yes, sir. I went online on that Thursday. It was a Wednesday. Thursday, I went online and I eventually placed an advert. Long story short, an amazing young lady from half Argentinian, half Italian had just arrived in the country. She answered the advert, interviewed her at my home, and we sat at the dining room table, and she came on board literally a few days later. And all of a sudden, within a few weeks, like it's like a ship in the ocean, everything started to shift. It wasn't quick, instant changes, but it started to shift. And we started to get into a different area of moving forward, and boom, the British School of Etiquette started to take off. And it gave me the opportunity to really focus on the transitional side of things, and Lucretia was focusing on the transactional side of things. And at that stage, there was no organization in our sector or industry that had actually officially become accredited by an educational awarding body. So my focus now was to become a continued professional development provider, to become ILM, City and Guilds accredited, to become an investors and people accredited organization. And through the CPD, we eventually became a center of training excellence. And subsequently, we were also accredited by the Institute of Leadership and Management here out of the United Kingdom. And so as I speak to all of you today and share my journey, and I thank you for humoring me and listening to me babbling on here, but as I speak today, the British School of Etiquette is now transitioned into the British School of Excellence for some obvious reasons, which I'm very happy to explain. And now we have representation and partners in Brazil, Bermuda, Benelux, Poland, Japan, India, Pakistan, obviously the United Kingdom is the head office, and we are hoping to launch in Oman and Saudi Arabia in the very near future. So that is where we are as we stand to date. The last 24 months have obviously been a challenge for everybody, but touch wood, we are still here. We're still very, very excited about what we deliver and what we have to offer. So you asked a very simple question, Teddy, and I've given you quite a convoluted, long journey in answering that.
Philip, I must say, that is one of the most impressive CVs, and I'd be fascinated by how long your CV actually is. If someone had to say, Philip, please submit your CV to me, you'd have to do a video.
I think a video would be more appropriate. Absolutely, Teddy.
Yeah. So Philip, if I just observe your career journey from the time you left Michael House, you were sort of in the corporate space. And if I break it up into two, you've got your hospitality, a little bit of banking, and you mentioned ladies like Mary, Magdalene, and Stephen on the banking side, who were your guides at the time. And it almost seems like you were a mentee being guided and coached and trained, given the context of the industry, and then transitioning into more the coach or the mentor. Just take us through some of the key highlights of your time as a mentee and then your time as a mentor.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Firstly, I think, going back to the Beat family, I think Val Beat was very prominent. She didn't suffer fools. If you arrived late, you didn't, even though you were desperate for a staff member, out you went. You couldn't run your, and we relied on our tips. So we made very good tips. We wore all white, we wore all white uniforms and white trainers, tackies. If those were dirty, if you couldn't clean them right there and then, boom, you were out. So for me, I mean, look, I think the discipline, and I mean positive discipline, not the negativity that Michael may have sort of instilled in those days, but the positive discipline. If you were late, you got early morning rising. You had to adhere. You had short back and sides. There was always something to keep you very, very focused and actually, adhere. There's a reason why there are systems in place in life. It's not about dictatorship. It's fundamental, and because it works and it makes you a far more dynamic, far better person. And so the colony days were, for me, a very, very fundamental part of my start of my career, I'd like to say. This, it really was. And then from there, going on to hotel school and working under Garth Struble, who again was a meticulous chef. He was one of South Africa's top chefs. Again, didn't suffer fools lightly, but very fair man. And I think for me, it's always been about people being fair, because I also, funny enough, I have to share with you, when I sold Pages in Time, I still had a stint left in Cape Town, and mobile phones were fairly fresh in those days, give or take. But a woman who ran 3 successful restaurants in Cape Town, there were more coffee shops, tracked me down. She and her partner were regulars at Pages in Time. And she tracked me down and said, Philip, I want you to come and help me at one of my restaurants. She had just taken on the management of the restaurant at the waterfront, at the SeaWorld there, or at the aquarium. And I've never in my life come across anybody who is such a bully, a person who pushed and shouted and shoved people around. So much so the kitchen staff, when I was in there, were chopping and we were bantering, da-da-da-da. The moment this woman walked in, everyone was like hunkering down as if a bomb was about to go off. And I actually have to be very open. I left that restaurant in tatters and tears. It blew me out the water, because that is definitely not the way to work and deal with people. So that, that was again a mentee in the sense of the definitely not to go down that particular route. You don't get anywhere in life through that approach. Moving on, Mary McGinn, again, just a very fair person, meticulous, knew when to have a lot of fun, but when it came to work and head down, focus. So again, really, the fact that I rattle her name off so freely and with such passion and joy is because she really did make an impression in my life. She was most probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 years older than me, maybe even slightly older, but amazing in that respect. Then moving on, to the bank, Stephen, again, an accountant, wasn't going to set the world on fire, but again, his patience with me, and I think his confidence that he had in me, because I think I was very open. I communicated very well with him and very clear. I was very clear, I was authentic, and I was honest. So he took me under his wing, and he really helped me a hell of a lot to sort of get my feet under the desk, so to speak. And that was a great honor, because actually, as I was a contractor, there was a gentleman who headed up that department from Zimbabwe, and I was actually the first contractor ever invited to the Foreign and Colonial Christmas party. Contractors didn't get that privilege, which again, hopefully I'm not blowing my trumpet too much in that one, but it just shows you that it shows that when people guide you and steer you and you feel a part of a team or an organization, you will always try to put your best foot forward. So those are the people that have really sort of, there are many people who've guided me and steered me. And I think, my message to so many people, I've just prior to connecting with you today, Teddy, and to the audience, I had the privilege of engaging with an international school in Switzerland, in Zurich. And I was talking to these teenagers, and I said to them, firstly, surround yourself with very positive people. Make sure you get rid of negative people in your life. Make sure you surround yourself not only with positive people, but people that are better than you, people that push you, people that encourage you. And find growth friends. Not friends that just happen to become friends because of circumstances. Find growth friends, friends who motivate you, encourage you, who push you, who are all the way behind you to see you succeed. Are you there, Teddy? Yeah, I think while Teddy's coming back in, so my journey has been fascinating, but it hasn't been without its knocks and bumps. And all of us in this world will have knocks and bumps. And I think from me to all the people I have the privilege of connecting with and engaging with, the one thing I always share with them is focusing on things that can help you shift your mindset. Things that can really, despite whatever the circumstances might be, look at things that can help you elevate yourself to another level. And one of the things that really helped me immensely in my life and in my world is gratitude, going on a gratitude journey every single day. There's not a day that goes past that I don't say thank you. And literally I line up 3 or 4 things that I am absolutely grateful for. In every sense of the word. And so for today, one of my gratitude things I wrote down on my gratitude journal was the fact that I had the opportunity and the privilege to be appearing on this mentorship series with you, Teddy, and the team. The other thing was the gratitude to be able to work with the teenagers in Switzerland and so forth. I write down 3 things, 4 things that I'm grateful for every single day. I write down a positive affirmation, 150%. I write down 3 things that would make today really amazing and really great. I then, at the end of the day, will write down 3 amazing things that happened to me today. Anything. It could be someone recommended a good book to read. Someone sent me a really wonderful email. It could be someone bought me a coffee at a coffee shop, whatever it is. And the final thing I always do is ask myself one further question. How could I have made today even better? Because for me, that really spurs me on, and it really helps me to try and be better than I was yesterday, for example. I think we as human beings, the idea of trying to be perfect doesn't work. We're human beings. We make mistakes. We can learn from our mistakes, absolutely. But to try and be better than we were yesterday, always just give ourselves a little challenge, a little push, a little nudge, and it will help us immensely take the next step forward. We have good days, we have bad days in this world. We've got to find those tools. We really do have to find those tools that help us to put our best foot forward each and every day.
Thanks, Philip. Apologies to the audience. My network went down. I had to switch networks, so sincere apologies.
Not at all, Teddy. I kept talking, so hopefully we got the audience still engaging.
Okay. No, definitely. I know that you can talk forever. I wish we actually had more time. But just as in the interim, I see Murray Witherspoon and David both made a few comments. I'm not sure if you can see them on your side, but Murray made a cheeky one at first saying, can you confirm or refute rumors that you once the fearless captain of the fifth 15? And apparently this team included players who went on to win the Currie Cup final.
100%. Oh, Murray, what a memory. Wow, that gives me
Yeah,
goosebumps. Absolutely. I was hooking for a period of time, and then I think after a scrum collapse one too many times, I moved to the flank. I was fairly fast, and I still want to
yeah,
share. I think if I had been, I had contemporaries of mine in my matric year, they were big lads, and I was a little pickin' and petite in those that were hopefully still keep in shape, but I was small compared to a lot of the chaps. So I did my utmost, but I managed to absolutely captain that team, and fun memories, fun memories.
And by the way, who were the Currie Cup players that played in your team?
Now you asking. Now you honestly, Teddy, we'd have to look at the archives. Now you've really thrown a curveball, but there definitely are, and maybe Murray even knows who they might be. But there were chaps as well who, that were definitely playing seconds and thirds who went on to, captain the Hong Kong Sevens and do some amazing things. So it just shows you in life, that it doesn't matter what team you're playing for. It's about the spirit, it's about the heart and the vindication. If you have a dream and a goal, not to give up on it.
No, thanks, Philip. There's a question, and it's related to a follow-up question that I'd actually like to make, and that's around just the good form and etiquettes in terms of the element of timelessness. And so Murray's got a question, and he's asking, do you think that any element of good form and etiquettes are timeless in itself? And this is obviously very much relevant to now the latter part of your career. And it seems that so much of the subject has changed these days, and even things like manners and decorum. So could you comment on that?
So most certainly can. For me, I think one thing is that manners and etiquette manners not so much have evolved. I think manners, that old wonderful adage, manners maketh a man or woman. For me, I think when you have good manners and you really know how to sort of really put your best foot forward, it really does give you the opportunity to, for me, I think manners really are those pleases, those thank yous, that consideration, that kindness, that empathy, thoughtfulness, taking others into account, it not making it about you. So if I can just put this in context, someone asked me not so long ago, they said to me, Philip, give us a summary of what you think manners, or what are manners to you? And so I sort of summed it up in the sense that manners and etiquette really, it's not about, oh, posh, do this, do that, blah, 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 and talk with a hot potato in your mouth on any level. It's far deeper than that. Manners and etiquette very much, I think, sum up, there are 4 areas that I love to share. And the first one is, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. That's number 1. Number 2 is always have a what can I do for you attitude. How can I help you? How can I guide you? What can I do for you? Is there anything that I can do to make a difference in your life? That's number 2. Number 3 is very much, putting people at ease in a very short space of time, making people feel comfortable in your environment. That for me is really, really powerful. It's almost that mindset of think of welcoming someone into your home and giving them that feeling of feeling relaxed, comfortable, and feeling very welcome. And the 4th one really boils down to, if we all do a random act of goodness or kindness on a regular, daily sort of basis, I truly believe that we'd set the world in the right direction. And that for me, I think sums up, the whole thing about, good, manners and etiquette and what we as human beings should all be about. The head and the heart are connected. And I think courtesy and politeness and having good manners are all about respecting others and yourself. That's for sure. Okay. Good manners is about considering the feelings of other people. So we talk about, everyone's familiar with the golden rule. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. However, Teddy, You may not like to be treated like Philip Sykes. I might not like to be treated like Teddy. However, there's the platinum rule. So we can elevate ourselves. Once we get to know people in our lives, our partners, our loved ones, our people, our work colleagues, our friends, once we get to know people off the back of one or two meetings, we talk about a platinum rule. Treat people the way they like to be treated or expect to be treated, then go back to being you. So manners, again, it's kind of person that others will always like and respect. And I think if you're respectful to others, then you're far more likely to be treated with respect by the people around you. And wherever we go and we show good manners everywhere we go, it's 100% going to encourage other people to, at some stage or another, potentially, hopefully step up to the mark. Whereas for me, etiquette are those rules or customs that really control accepted behavior in maybe a particular social group or in social situations. Etiquette is absolutely fundamental and specific to various countries. So we as human beings need to respect the rules of engagement within that country, the rules of connecting with people on certain levels, the traditions, the dress codes, all of those sort of things. And for me, I think what I want to make everyone aware is that manners and etiquette are bedfellows. They belong together. You can't have one without the other, okay? Manners are those guiding principles of respect and social interaction, and etiquette is the unwritten code of exact rules. So please, everyone, understand, it's rules. They're not set in stone per se, but they are those it guides us through life. Manners represent that inner self, whereas etiquette is what and how you portray yourself to the public. One absolutely represents your way of acting, and the other is how do I treat other people. So for me, that really sums up manners and etiquette. And funny enough, I've actually got an amazing book. I mean, this book dates back to the 1900s, and it's written by Lady Trowbridge. And it's wonderful. It really and truly is. And I'd love to just read, if I may, now that this question's been asked. Etiquette may be defined as the technique of the art of social life. For various and good reasons, certain traditions have been handed down, just as they are in any other art, science, or department of life. And only very thoughtless persons could consider unworthy of notice that set of rules which guides us in our social relations to each other. Please notice the word guide, for that is the very root of the matter. Books on etiquette are guides. They're not regulations to be followed blindly without understanding their meaning, and with a grasp only of the letter and not the spirit. So that back at early 1900s. I then have a book which is fascinating, because this was a little book, and if I can bring it up to the screen, this was a little book given to a gentleman back in 1827, from, if I remember clearly, 1870. There's the little inscription, 1870, to a gentleman by the name of J.H. Powell. And I love the opening lines in this particular book, because it says, "High birth and good breeding are the privileges of the few, but the habits and manners of a gentleman may be acquired by all. Nor is their requirement attended with difficulty. Etiquette is not an art requiring the study of a lifetime. On the contrary, its principles are simple, and their practical application involves only ordinary care, tact, and sagacity." And it goes on. And so this little book would have been given to a gentleman on how to attend a wedding, a funeral, a call. In those days, they had calling cards where they went and knocked on a door and had to, introduce themselves before they popped around to someone. So there were these guides and principles. So I hope my long-winded explanation and answer has answered the question.
No, Philip, that's great. In fact, it wasn't only answering the question, but also educating us about manners and etiquette. And quite often, some of us actually confuse the two. We think it's the same thing. And if I look at the books that you've shared, they all look like they both look like they're from 100 years ago. So how can one get a hold of them? Are they available on Amazon Books? Or?
I don't believe so. This I found in an old antique shop. As I said, it's an original, dated 1827. It's fortunately it's still in reasonably good condition. The Book of Etiquette by Lady Trowbridge, I would imagine that might be available. It's obviously a thick read, and I mean, so just what Murray was sharing, there's a lot what's in here that might have obviously move forward. So you talk about etiquette is like there's got to be elasticity attached to it. So for example, this particular medium that we all now communicate through, there's etiquette to online interviewing, online classes, online interviewing, whatever it might be. There's an absolute art to putting your best foot forward in this particular arena. So that for me is a rule of engagement, showing up on time, making sure you adhere to dress codes, making sure that you respect those actual rules of engagement. So etiquette will evolve 100%. We all have social media at our fingertips. So there are rules of engagement. So we have a brand called Techiquette and Netiquette and Internetiquette. We work with our mindset and manners teams, which are the teenagers, and we talk heavily about the positives of social media, but the negatives. There are many, many negatives. And I think from me to all of you out there, if we think we've gone through a pandemic, through COVID, which we obviously clearly have, I think we've all got to wake up and realize that as good as technology is, there's a very, very dangerous element to it. And it's going to, I think, have a very serious knock-on effect going forward in this world if we don't wake up.
And Philip, I'm glad you raised the subject of technology, because Sean Lumley, our incoming president of the Oilers Club, actually has a similar question or related question. And his question is how relevant would you say books like Debrett's in particular and that context is on the technological landscape?
Books are having to adapt. Great question, Sean. And Debrett's, by the way, a very old publishing house that sort of somehow fell into setting up classes and lessons in the etiquette arena. But their books are fantastic. And I suppose Debrett's, for me, is more on protocol. Yes, if you were, let's say, Teddy, coming to the United Kingdom and you were attending, let's say, Sean's wedding, and it happened to be a very, English wedding, you could go to Debrett's and it would give you the correct dress code for that. So Debrett's has got it's a Bible on various aspects of do's and don'ts. It does definitely give you the tools that you would need in certain scenarios. It also focuses on protocol. And for those of you out there, there's a difference between protocol, etiquette, and manners. Protocol is very much what, again, Sean would be very accustomed to from his military days. There's protocol. You stick to the protocol. There's no give or take. It's very clear. Boom, 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 and you follow that protocol. So I think books that Debrett's and those organizations publish are they have to upgrade and update their material, talking on Techiquette and Netiquette and Internetiquette. One has to. It's part of the course. If they don't, well, then they're left in the dark ages. And just we are actually in a very in a hope. I'm not sure exactly when, but along with a colleague of mine, we've actually written a book called Crushing Etiquette, because we want to get people away from looking at etiquette and manners. Etiquette and manners. As, what is that? Haven't we moved away from that? Because no, etiquette and manners, we need it more now than ever before. They are like the traffic lights in society. It's so that we don't bang into each other. There's so much. We actually, every Friday, we have a show in which is on USA Global TV called The Power of Etiquette and Manners, which is on a YouTube channel every Friday, 3 p.m. GMT. And I get the most wonderful guests coming in who really complement the show and talk about the fundamentals of etiquette and manners, and how important it is to understand that there is very strong etiquette and manners attached to social media.
And if we just stick on the subject of etiquette and manners, what is the most sort of your key aspect of etiquette and manners that would be most relevant or most effective in a mentor and mentee relationship?
Again, great question. So when we as an organization talk about etiquette and manners, we very much bring into that as the foundation is emotional intelligence, EQ, because we can all, our IQ, yeah, I'll never be able to, I don't think, increase my IQ, maybe by half a percent. But our EQ, our emotional intelligence, which comprises of self-awareness, it comprises of emotion management, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. When we can work on those areas of our lives, we can really elevate ourselves to a phenomenal level. We really and truly can. And I mean really work on ourselves. We can rewire our brain. For any of us out there that have been tripped up or had a challenging upbringing, or you've been put down all your life or bullied, we can rewire our brain by studying and doing emotional intelligence programs and courses. So that was one of my real front runners. When we set up initially the British School of Etiquette, the first thing I did is I instilled modules that incorporated emotional intelligence. So that for me, Teddy, it's a really great question, because we talk about, and we've coined the phrase, the power of etiquette and manners. You know, everyone out there must understand etiquette and manners is not something you just turn on because you need to impress someone, or hold on, I'm going to this event and I need to organize myself. No, etiquette and manners is a lifestyle choice. Etiquette and manners is a way of life. So for all those youngsters out there, our fellow Michael Hoosians who are still at school, I'm going to send out a very sharp message, because one of the old boys mentioned to me at the last old boys dinner. He said some of our public school boys in South Africa have this onus of elitism and this era of, hey, I went to the school, I can behave the way I want. And one of the openly said to me, he said, the Michael House boys are treating women horrendously, atrociously. They're not gentlemen. And they think that they can muscle their way around because they went to an amazing school. My message to everybody, not just my class, to any school, any young people out there, manners and etiquette need to be taken very, very seriously, because we need to guide ourselves through life. And we need, as human beings, as you as a father, Teddy, I'm a father, and there are hopefully many people out there, I know Sean is, we need to invest in ourselves by surrounding ourselves with amazing mentors, coaches. We then need to be able to coach and guide and mentor our youngsters, because our youngsters are the future. And if we don't do that, we will fall down on a global scale. We will fall down dramatically. So, I can't instill or even say more passionately that manners and etiquette, we should all understand that it's not an annoyance. It's not there to trip us up. It's there to guide us through life. And a lot of schools, what we're finding here in the United Kingdom, for example, schools are focusing purely on academia. They want the results. They want the Ofsted results. They want to show that they've got the credentials to get bright people into the best schools, universities, and they are lacking on those soft skills. And recently I was doing some research, because as an organization, we've got a very strong research department, because we need to not be looking for today, we need to be looking into the future. And if we don't look into the future, this is a message to all of us, don't worry about today, don't worry about tomorrow. You need to be planning for the future. We really and truly do. And there was an amazing article that the World Economic Forum produced, and they talked about the future of jobs and our future in society. And with artificial intelligence and bots being so prevalent in our lives, there are skills that we need for the future of life and work. The first one is creativity. Second one, emotional intelligence. Third one, analytical, critical thinking. The fourth one is active learning and a growth mindset. The fifth one, judgment and decision making. The sixth one, our interpersonal communication skills. The seventh one, leadership skills. The eighth one, and fundamentally powerful and important, diversity and cultural intelligence. Number 9, technology skills. And the final one, which I just absolutely love, is the ability to embrace change. We all in this fourth industrial revolution is embracing change, because if we don't, I promise you right now, we're going to lose traction, and we're going to start, I don't know, maybe crumbling a little bit as a human race if we haven't already started in certain areas. And I want everyone also out there to understand that Britain used to be synonymous with good etiquette and manners, but the world over needs good etiquette and manners. Here in the United Kingdom, it's appalling. And I'm throwing it out as a blanket. I'm not pinpointing anybody. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. But as the world has become a smaller place, we need to learn to embrace one another. We need to learn to understand one another better. We need to understand there's one race, and that's the human race. We need to forget the past. We need to be very present in ourselves, and we need to focus on the future.
You know what I find fascinating, Philip, is those 10 skills that you named: creativity, embracing change, emotional intelligence. Out of those 10, only one is hard, and that's the technology. And it came in at number 9. The other 9, 1 to 8, and number 10 is pretty much soft skills.
150%. 150%. So right.
So, Philip, any closing comments before I bring the session to a close, in terms of, if you had to look back to the beginning of your career, and if we use your time at Michael House and when you matriculated as a yardstick, would you do anything different?
Oh, that's a fascinating question. Yeah, I would have worked harder at school. No disrespect. I think when we were at Michael House, the education wasn't anywhere what it is today. So I would have loved to have had, I think, stronger teachers encouraging those students who were just sort of pulling through. And my message to anybody out there is, don't just rely on your good looks and your etiquette and manners. Despite there being a wonderful phrase by an amazing American gentleman, good manners will open doors that the best education cannot. I want to put a caveat into that wonderful phrase. Good education will often, good manners will more than likely or often open doors that the best education cannot. Because for me, to all of the people out in this world, is never stop educating yourself, never stop continued professional development. And that phrase that I've coined, there's a phrase out there: show me a successful man or woman, and I will show you their library. So that's one thing. But looking back, I wanted to do medicine. My grandfather was a medical gentleman here in the United Kingdom, a very prominent, medical doctor and researcher. But yeah, it wasn't my calling, Teddy. I don't believe it was. I truly believe that whether one believes in God or not, I don't know, but God has a plan for all of us. And I think life takes us on a journey. And when we look back at our lives, we can actually look at where the lesson was given to us and how we can implement that in our lives moving forward, and how it can guide us to be more dynamic and far more focused in our journey here in this world. One thing we need to all understand is that we are here for a very, very short time in this world. Believe it or not, 100 years goes past in a flash. My dad's turned 80 in August last year. My mum's turning 80 in March. And I'm 27 years younger than my father. And I'm thinking, gee, in 27 years' time, I'm going to be 80. As long as I stay healthy and well, I'm going to be on this mission, this journey to continue helping as many people as I can in this world, because we can all make a difference. We can all be a mentor to someone. We can all be a guiding light to someone, and we may not even know it. So anyone out there, please, it's about putting your best foot forward, because you never know who's looking up to you. You never know who you're making an impression on, who you can help. And it can be done in such a beautiful, silent way. And one of the things I love to share with anyone that comes through our programs and our courses is the first thing I get people to write down. I say, note to self. Note to self is, I am my brand, number 1. Number 2 is another note to self. I would like to be the person that I would like to meet. Okay. Number 3, one person, one opportunity can change your life for the rest of your life. Why? Because you showed up. Why? Because you put your best foot forward. Why? Because you made an impression or you did something amazing. And on the other side of the coin, you yourself can change someone's life in an instant, in a positive way or a negative way. So bear that in mind. And the final one I love to share is, nothing is ever achieved unless truly first imagined. So those for me are fundamental in the journey of life. We can't wind back the clock, but one thing we can absolutely do 100% is make a difference going forward.
Thanks, Philip. That's a great summary. And I'm actually a writer. That's how I remember things a lot better, and that's how I ended up doing quite decently at school. So I've got a whole bunch of notes, and whenever I host these sessions, I actually like to bucket some of the writings that I put down. And if there's really three things in closing that I would like to summarize, is the first thing is how you relate to people in terms of your encouragement, and you summarize it to say, surround yourself with positive people. Don't worry too much about the negative people. Make sure that you surround yourself with people better than you, and then ultimately surround yourself with growth friends. And then in terms of how you treat people, you summarize it by saying, be kind, have an attitude that is helpful in mind, in saying, how can I help you? Make people feel comfortable, and always remember the random acts of kindness. And then really the final thoughts that you shared was around making sure that you always put your best foot forward, and keep in mind that how you treat people and relate to people is how would you like to see yourself in the future, and how would you like to meet you in the future. And nothing is really ever achieved until truly imagined. And the last comment that I'd actually like to share is this quote that you have recently validated and qualified, in that good manners will open doors that the best education cannot. And so, Philip, on that very note, thank you very much. It was an absolute privilege.
Teddy, may I just conclude and just recite a poem that for me stands out? And this is a poem that I think we all need to sort of pin up on our walls, especially the parents out there, because, you know, children are amazing, beautiful creatures, and we are adults. We've got to learn to be patient. We've got to learn to be kind. We've got to learn to be shepherds. And there's an amazing poem written by Dorothy Law Nolte, and it's called Children Learn What They Live. And it goes along the following lines. If a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, he learns to fight. If a child lives with fear, he learns to be apprehensive. If a child lives with pity, he learns to feel sorry for himself. If a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If a child lives with jealousy, he learns what envy is. If a child lives with shame, he learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns to be confident. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. If a child lives with praise, he learns to be appreciative. If a child lives with acceptance, he learns to love. And if a child lives with approval, he learns to like himself. If a child lives with recognition, he learns that it is good to have a goal. And if a child lives with sharing, he learns about generosity. If a child lives with honesty and fairness, he learns what truth and justice are. If a child lives with security, he learns to have faith in himself and in those about him. If a child lives with friendliness, he learns that the world is a nice place in which to live. He learns to love. And if we all live with serenity, your child will live with peace of mind. So for me, I just want to leave you with that beautiful poem by Dorothy Law Nolte. It's a fundamental poem, and I think that sort of poem is a poem that I share with so many people wherever I can. And it's really got such phenomenal value in those written words.
Wow, Philip, that is absolutely exceptional. I will look out for that poem, and we'll surely share it on OM Plus with the rest of the old boys. But thank you very much once again. Thank you to the lovely audience that managed to join us tonight. We did record the session, and so we will also make sure that we share it on our YouTube channel as well as on OM Plus. And on that note, Philip, have a lovely evening. And thank you very much to everyone else for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Real pleasure. Bye, dankie. Giabonga Rakulu. Merci. Grazie. All those goodbyes and thank yous. Thank you so much, Teddy, and thank you to you and your team for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, Philip. Take care.